This is Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. It's good to have you right there. Let's get into the discussion for the day as I have an international information officer joining me to do the conversation today. The conversation is around something very important, and that is the issues surrounding global citizenship. My name is still Ramsey Enoch Agbo. I have Leko Agunloye joining me on the conversation today. He's an international information officer. It's good to have you on Diplomatic Perspective today.
It's nice being here. I'm an information professional.
Let's get started. When we say citizen, what is citizenship?
Well, when you say citizenship, it only means that you are an entity, part and parcel of a nation. That is, perhaps by reason of birth, by reason of parenting, by reason of marriage, or in some other instances, there could be other special consideration. But majorly, basis for acquiring citizenship will be because of birth, because of parenting, because of marriage, and of course, like we said, there can be other special consideration defined. Maybe sometimes you are not even offered the status of a citizen, but you're given a permanent residency. Now, a permanent residency also could give you a number of privileges and rights that are available to citizens.
We're actually treating this topic because a lot of Nigerians travel across the globe. You know, there is no part of this world that you go to today and you won't find a Nigerian, as the case may be. Maybe just few countries of this world. And you go, I was speaking with someone, I hosted someone on Diplomatic Perspective, I think a few weeks ago. And the person is a citizen of the United States of America. How did he do that? By migrating from Nigeria, get there and get the citizenship. Now, what are the reasons why people push for the citizenship of different countries? I know there are people who want to be citizens of Nigeria too as a country.
Well, citizenship puts you at the expense of certain rights and privileges. And I think that in most cases, people go after the privileges available for being called a citizen. Now, for instance, when you are the citizen of a country, you necessarily do not need a visa to visit your country, except in which case where, however, you have violated the safe conduct and rights of citizenship. We know some years back, I think it was the British system that said, oh, some teenagers have gone to Afghanistan to fight on behalf of the jihadists, and for that reason, they will no longer be admitted into the United Kingdom. And I think right now there is also a rule. Assad's wife definitely is British by whatever reason he's got a British passport or is a UK citizen. But right now we're being told he is not welcome back home. So perhaps he and the husband will need to go and seek asylum somewhere in Russia or elsewhere. But definitely, whatever official statement is coming out for now is that it's not welcome. We remember also, I think, when this guy was president in Ghana, J.J. Rowling, the mother being Scottish, despite that, I don't think he was not really a welcome personnel in Scotland. Anyway, they claim on human right record. The human right record is got in Ghana does not befit that which they can celebrate for a British citizen. So you will see that there are rights, there are privileges. The fact that you have free entry and free exit, the fact that you could also be in a nation, walk up to the embassy of that nation for which you are classified a citizen, and you get some attention. Now, when there was COVID, I knew there were Nigerians who left for some countries in Europe because they have dual citizenship for those countries, and those countries have provided plane to evacuate their people home in the course of the global pandemic. And because they felt, look, there they have more access to protection and to services than they can trust here, then they would rather go there than stay here. If you are a citizen, perhaps in the UK, I think from 0 to 16, you are likely not paying school fees and you are attending schools that are up to standard. If you are to get that, maybe around there, you're going to be paying so much. So I think the different privileges and rights available in the different nations allows people to want to really belong to those places.
All right. Irrespective of we're looking at something very important here, because we're talking about citizenship. We give an instance of the young boys who belong to that jihadist group, okay, terrorist group or whatever they are. Then you also made mention of the overthrown Syrian president's wife, okay, who has been told not to return back to Britain, even though she's a British. Now, don't you think this is an infringement in their fundamental right or the abuse of their citizenship?
Well, I don't think it will be an abuse, because within the framework, I know when the case of the teenager was on, it was very loud. And the idea was that, look, if Britain had rejected what the ISIS was doing in Afghanistan, you deciding to go and join the ISIS as a teenager, 18 or 19, you are already old enough to take decision. Your decision to leave Britain to join ISIS is a crime against the nation. And it's more like you denouncing the citizenship of your country for you to be able to do that role. I know in the past, I think that has changed now. There was a time when Germany necessarily require you to resign as a citizen of your country of birth if you want the citizenship of Western Germany. I think in those days you have to first of all resign as a citizen of the country of birth, because Germany then will not allow dual citizenship.
Meaning it's possible for someone to say, okay, I'm not a citizen of this country anymore.
No, even in the Nigerian law, you can resign as a citizen of Nigeria. It's permitted.
So you can just go get citizenship of another country.
Yes.
Then you say, no, I'm not a Nigerian anymore.
You can resign.
Okay.
Submit your international passport. If you have a Nigerian passport, you need to submit it attached with a resignation letter that you are no longer a Nigerian.
What could result to something like that? Is it possible?
It's possible. Like we said, some of those who migrated to Germany at the time needed to necessarily provide that proof that you have resigned as a citizen of your country for you to apply as a citizen of West Germany.
Wow. Well, we're talking about issues surrounding our citizenship, as a lot of people are clamoring and wanting to become citizens of other countries. All right, now let's look at this issue now. Before now, I know a lot of Nigerians, okay, especially Nigeria. I'm talking about Nigeria because this is the country that I know. Sometimes you see people moving from Nigeria to other countries like the United States, United Kingdom, especially when they are pregnant, okay, they go there to give birth.
Migration is a fact of life, whether we like it or not. When we check the traditional system, you are going to see stories of people migrating from point A to B. The origin of most of the towns you have in the world today, you can trace it to some people who migrated some 600 years, some 1,000 years, some 2,000 years ago to settle where they are. So basically, you cannot rule out migration. Issue of citizenship and rights of residence or permanent residency, of course, will aid migration. So to a large extent, therefore, people who are looking at the future, who are looking at the possibility of migration, who want to make it easy, may also want children to have leverage on certain things. But we also know that over time, my immigration laws in most nations have been changing. I know that for more than 10 years, the UK no longer gives citizenship to a child just because the child is born in the country. I think the law now says that one of the parents must necessarily be a UK citizen for that child you are giving birth to be a citizen. I think in some other places the parents must have a permanent resident status. Now the US up until now allows you to come in, deliver the child, register the birth, collect a passport for the child, and so that makes the child necessarily a US citizen. But of course we know that in the coming Trump era that may no longer be the case.
Yes, there is a speculation that, well, one of the things that a lot of people, a lot of Nigerian and other countries are so scared of is the fact that Trump might not be immigrants friendly. Okay, and there is a speculation that Trump may be stopping the citizenship by birth if either of the parents it's not a national.
Well, if he decides to do that, it will not be too wrong, in my personal opinion. Nations necessarily need, in the modern world, to have the right data, to have the right figures and facts, to do their long-range plan, because things are necessarily changing. Now, when you talk about delivery, maybe from conception to delivery, that takes about 9 months. So maybe for somebody who wants to go give birth as a tourist, you could have planned for it. I also, in my own nation, if I have one, can also decide to treat you as a visitor. So a visitor came into our house, gave birth to the child, he will go back home with his child. He is just a visitor and should be treated as a visitor that needed attention and was attended to. It's as simple as that. The hospital or the system is first and foremost designed for the residents. But we are residents and we are entitled to take visitors. And so when the visitors come, they can use the facilities for the time of their visit.
But using the facility, I don't think they will enjoy the privileges that people who are citizens enjoy.
That's what people are trying to complain about now, as Trump removing. You want to be an American, now migration is a very clear rule. There are regular migrations, and we want to migrate regularly. The processes are defined. You want to come maybe by diversified visa lottery, America will do that. There are settings for skilled migrants. There are settings for students migration. But a lot of those things, one, have their cost implication and have their time limit, and they are regular. And those conditions are precedent so that the nation can also appropriately plan for the people coming. You know, we are taking 100 foreign students, and you know they will be living there over a period of 3 to 5 years, and some of them in the course of that may apply to continue to stay. But you have them around, you can profile them, you can plan, you can include them in the agenda of what the nation is doing going forward. But not that a visitor coming today, give birth to a child, gone away just like a one night stand baby, and then 10 years later the one night stand is coming back as a boy, right, in which you now have to provide for suddenly in the society. It's been missing for 9 years, right? The parents are not participating in any activity, so the cake is coming to share at 10 or 17. His or her parents were not part of the people that baked it. But if they were legal residents, I think that the case will have to be redefined. So what I will be looking forward to is the fact that there will be a differentiation between children born by legal residents and visitor and tourists. As far as I'm concerned, if you go in there for the purpose of delivery, you are a tourist. That's why it's even called medical tourism in the first place. You are a tourist. So a tourist child shouldn't have the same right as residents. Otherwise, there will be trouble. A city like London possibly take more tourists in a year than the actual number of residents. So where you get that It's a city that takes 3 to 5 million tourists in a year. So if 3 million of them decides to maybe use the medical facility to have a child, then it means that the city will have 3 million children in diaspora yearly that they cannot even monitor what is happening to their fact of their life. But when they grow up later in life, you are saying that they are citizens and they can pop in and have the right with the people who have built the system that they did not participate in. I think to an extent, when we come to the issue of fairness and responsibility, they don't pay tax in that land, their parents will not pay, but they will come back much later to come and do all the benefits. I think that there should be proper defining and clarity concerning those things.
All right, it is still a diplomatic perspective on global television. We're talking about issues surrounding citizenship in different countries around the world. It's been established that, as a matter of fact, in UK, it has been stopped long ago, especially that of birth. But then, despite the fact that that of birth is being stopped, the other ones, is it still on for UK and United States, as a matter of fact?
So in most countries of the world, there are still processes of becoming citizenship. Maybe a journey of 5 years for some, a journey of 10 years for some. But the processes are defined and they are achievable. And people are achieving them. Right? People are achieving them. Think back at some point, even up till now, there is what we call special talent. I think the UK still does special talent visas. What that says is, you as an individual think you have some special talent that can help the UK or that can contribute. I think that was what replaced. There was a time they have what they call the high skilled migrant scheme. You must be at least a university graduate with some measure of experience. When you apply, of course, your experience is checked, you attend an interview, and you are taken in. So there are still a lot of means that does not involve cutting corners. What majority of the nations are trying to work against is when people cut corners, it affects future development. So if you must migrate legally. There is procedure. There is, even North Korea, when you check, there will be a process of migration if you want to go in. The only thing is that if you enter North Korea illegally, you are likely not going to live to tell the story, right?
Yeah.
But every nation have a procedure. This, and this are what you do if you want to come in to us. So now, what the rest of the people frown against is illegal migration. And the reality is that a lot of people are dwelling on illegal migration. You have collected a tourism visa, you should not translate a tourism visa, then it expires and you didn't renew it, and then you are running crookedly around the nation. The nation can actually not correctly plan for you because on their record, you do not exist there. You do not exist there. That's why possibly people will say nation like Germany, they are very mean. You have a 2 days training, they will likely give you a 7 days visa, which gives you 2 days to enter the country, do your training, and maybe another 2 or 3 days to exit. And then you are why? Because they want to be everybody is demanding for efficient processes. And yet we want to cut corners. If the data are not right, if the records are not correct, if the people are not honest, it becomes difficult for you to actually put together a plan and to run the plan.
But talking about migration now, let's look at Nigeria as a country. Not just Nigeria, but other African countries. Most of the issues we have with migration and, of course, citizenship of other countries is common with the European countries. Do we really have people flooding into Africa, coming into Nigeria, especially in this kind of a challenging economy, to want to be citizens?
Well, I'm not in the immigration, but with my little travels here and there, I also know that there are people in Europe who are envious of Africa. Some of them think that our laws are loose. Some of them think there are a lot of gaps they can put their head into. Some of them lurks around in the name of tourism. I've seen a German who had been to virtually every country in the Lake Victoria axis, in the Lake Chad axis. As at the time I was meeting him, he'd been in Egypt for 2 months. But he has spent the greater part of that year, that was in November, he has spent the greater part of that year going from places to places in Africa, and could compare the food you eat and could tell you what they produce here, what they produce there. The kind of things you can legally sell in those countries, the kind of things you can smuggle, how porous some of our borders are. The fact that you can take camels, what you could take from Nigeria through the Trans-Sahara to Morocco and sell to South America over the sea, the things you could bring in. So a whole lot are there. We want to go there because we want a life that is controlled and structured and settled. Even though we don't like regulations, but because those places seem to have been structured and settled, some of us want to get in there. You get to the UK and you will still see that we have problems with their laws. There are women,
Nigerians have problem with their laws.
There are women in Saudi who will tell you the council had come to take away their children, possibly because they left children under the age of 10 in the house by themselves.
But don't you think that that's good enough? Because, but in Nigeria here, you see people living, even children under 5, back at home.
Yeah. So, no, that's what I'm saying, that there are people who want that kind of life that we live. So they would want to be here. There are those also who want the kind of life that is there. But there are those who are in between. They work for the money, they work for this. You see people make noise and say our medical professions are living. I say no. Everybody is living. Cleaners are living to the Middle East. I know cleaners who have resigned because they want to go to the Middle East. I know drivers who have resigned because they want to go to Canada. I know people who work on the farm, tractor drivers, who had moved to New Zealand, Australia, or to Canada. So it's not only, so when we are talking about there is immigration, people are living. But first and foremost, so rather than make it a point of duty of, okay, it's only, you go to the university and say lecturers are living. People will live and will continue to live. So we should possibly focus more on perhaps producing more. Britain is one of the biggest football nation in the world. How many British coaches are working outside Britain? But how many of the top clubs in Britain are coached by German or Spanish or Italian? Those guys don't care where the guys work, but you realize that those 3 nations keep producing more and more coaches, and their coaches are flooding everywhere. Even in Africa, we are engaging them. They are not complaining. So if we have the resources with which to produce the talents, those who can stay should stay. Find a means of ensuring that you can continue to produce. Then if they are also going, you begin, I think you saw a coach that was coming recently and was talking about, the issue was not the job, the issue was not his salary, the issue was how much of his tax back home will NFF help him to pay. The disagreement was on the tax. It tells you that as they are leaving the country, they are also thinking of giving back. I met a lot of guys from Philippines who used to work for the same international organization with me, and we realized that they don't live with their wife and children in any nation where they live. Whatever jobs they do, almost all their money go back home to fix the Philippines. One once told me, he said, there is so much money in the Gulf, but Gulf life is expensive. So we have to leave our family in Philippines, come here in Gulf, make the money, and send it back home. It's as simple as that. So for some nations, it's even a strategy. I'm told that in the 70s, when the Indians were here as physics and mathematics teacher, a percentage of their salary or something was being remitted to India to help the economy at home.
Oh, they are somewhere else like Nigeria,
Yes.
then contributing to nation building, back in
home.
their own home.
They were here.
But the Nigerians do that.
Officially, I am not aware that we have any structure that takes care of that. And I think that we need to have that. Yes, we talk about diaspora remittance. It is at the will of the individuals. I want to give to my family. I want to contribute to this, but not a national structure where you say, okay, back home, maybe this is what comes in as tax. Okay, the nation has spent money. You have scholarship to do your first degree, to do your master's. They even sponsor you do PhD abroad, and you won't come back. Neither will you contribute anything. I think we've got a lot of that. China has more population than us, so we won't say it's a function of population. When Chinese go to the UK on scholarship, their certificates go to the embassy, not to the individuals. And so they necessarily have to first of all return home. And if they decide to now leave, they would follow procedures. But I can assure us today, if we take a census, the number of lecturers who have been abroad on TED Fund scholarship, what percentage of them had returned to Nigeria? So it's not that migration is bad, but it's that we have to look at it in a regular format so that we can track it. It's an addition to the nation. We are producing more engineers than we can consume. We are producing in almost every field. Even today, when you say bead making, I'm sure that the number of people who can bake cakes in Nigeria, if they are lined up, the customers are not enough to patronize them.
So now, do all of this contribute to international relations?
No, definitely it should. And that's why the diplomacy should come in to manage it. When you sit down with people to talk, I used to know that when Egypt in those days was talking to any nation, one of the things they are putting on the table is the security at home. That was before the Arab Spring. And so they are encouraging you. We may not have much, but we have leather, we have souvenirs, we have tourist sites, we have peaceful environment. And so they are negotiating tourism. They are negotiating air. They are negotiating things that are related. They are saying, okay, come and build your training facilities in Egypt. We have land. We have 24 hours electricity supply. Our electricity has not failed 1 minute since 1958 that we finished building the Aswan Dam. Those are the things they are putting on the table. So if you are going to get cheap electricity, you are going to get cheap transport, it means the labor will be cheap. Then tell me why you should build the factory in the UK where, although those three things are also available, but they are expensive.
All right. Well, this is so good to know. We're talking about the issues surrounding citizenship globally, and I have an information expert talking to us today. You can see how we are cutting across from one country to the other, the way it is and the way it has been, and the right way that it is supposed to be. Well, time will not allow us to continue anymore. We would have loved to get on and on and on to say this, to educate the people who are watching Diplomatic Perspective right now. But then this is where we're going to call it a wrap for this edition of Diplomatic Perspective. A very big thank you to you, Mr. Olalekan, for coming around.
You're welcome.
My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Bye-bye for now.